Hello, everyone, on the Movie Mits channel. I am Matthew, of course, joined by my wonderful co-host and best friend.
Callum.
Now, today we're reviewing another Nicolas Cage film. And the last time we did this, I think it was for Willy's Wonderland. That was kind of a slasher horror flick starring, of course, Nicolas Cage, which I think at the time, we thought it was okay. Not too bad, nothing sort of special. But Nicolas Cage is always sort of he's an enigma in Hollywood. People either love him or hate him, but I think we really do love him. He's a really he's a special character and a very talented actor, which we've definitely saw in this film entitled Pig. So it's one that I think has gone under the radar a little bit. Sometimes we go to our local sort of university theater and watch a few sort of smaller films. We reviewed a few foreign films there, and we saw a trailer for this, and or maybe like a poster or something you'd said to me about it, and that's the only way I really would have heard about this film. Other than that, so I'm intrigued to see what the public consensus behind it's going to be. Given that it is kind of a smaller independent film. So yeah, I'll pass over to you, Callum, if you want to just give us a brief rundown on what the film's about, because I'd imagine not a lot of people probably know. So yeah,
Yeah, I
off to
mean
you, mate.
it's been out for a while in America, and it came out here a couple of months ago. We unfortunately missed it, so we caught it in its on demand window. Uh, so this film is about Nicolas Cage's character Robin. Is a reclusive guy who finds truffles using his prized truffle pig, who is unfortunately kidnapped, and then he goes on the hunt to try and track the pig down, return it to him. But in doing so, he has to return to sort of elements of his old life and sort of confront his troubled past.
Yeah, so on paper that might sound like really silly to a lot of people, but I would definitely say this film is not necessarily what you expect on the surface, and be that in a good or bad way. It's certainly not anything like I thought we'd imagine, but like I said, it's it's gonna. I think this is gonna split a lot of people. I looking today, and this is Nicolas Cage's highest film in Rotten Tomatoes. It's doing really well critically, I think. So I'll be interested to see what the mass sort of audience verdict of it is. And as I said, if you've seen it, let us know in the comments. Suggest like your thoughts, and we'll always be able to read and react to them. We'll always be intrigued to hear your guys' opinions and those kind of things. And of course, if you want to check out our other sort of films and stuff, you can probably find loads of other ones starring sort of independent films. Like I said, Willy's Wonderland was a Nicolas Cage one we reviewed a few months ago. So that'll be in like our horror film playlist, I'd imagine. And of course, our Timecodes, email, and iTunes link, all that's in the description. You guys know the drill with that. Um, First thing, I guess I'd say about this film is it's really gorgeous to look at, isn't it? That's something I'd said to you before we hopped on the recording today. But it's for a directorial debut, I think as well. It looks marvelous.
Yeah, it's really incredible, and the dialogue is very intricate. It's well delivered. I think it's a really impressive directorial debut. It's just that it's maybe the runtime, or it's maybe the fact that Nicolas Cage's character Robin is a man of few words. But I struggled to connect with it, and I assume that's more an issue with me than it is an issue with the film. Because there's so many elements of this film that I absolutely love. Most importantly, how earnestly they take this very ridiculous pitch. Uh, so I mean, I appreciated a lot about this film, but I sort of struggled to connect with it. By the middle point, I'd taken a bit of a break in the film, and I really struggled to get back to it. And it felt like a film that had we seen in the cinema, I think the connection would have been a lot easier. But I maybe struggled a bit at home.
Yeah, no, I'd absolutely agree. The subject matter here is not necessarily something I can relate to either, obviously. Um, but that being said, I think the premise of the film does sound ridiculous, but I personally didn't connect with the film because of that. It's not necessarily because the plot was seen silly. It's kind of kind of like the mediocrity of just the general gist of the film. I just thought it was quite dull in parts. You know what I mean? It's not, it's I kind of going in kind of silly, stupidly expected this sort of Liam Neeson revenge film where Nicolas Cage goes
Mhm.
around killing loads of people and those kind of things. It's certainly not that. But that being said, I think there's a lot to be said about how it sort of breaks down those boundaries and the stereotypes behind those kind of revenge films. It's not a film necessarily about revenge. It's about grief loss, and it's really pure at heart as well. It's quite a it's quite a mellow film as well. There's a lot of there's not a lot of happiness here. It's quite dull and quite sort of sad and melancholic. But that being said, Nicolas Cage is still a bright spot in it. It's just, for me, the connection just wasn't there for me, where I feel like I'd have to rewatch it immediately or anything like that. I don't think I'll ever rewatch this film, if that makes sense. So that's just how I personally felt with somebody, just the lack of connection there with it.
Yeah, I also thought it was going to be, this John Wick style retribution film. But really, it's just a film about a chef who loves his pig, and really, in theory, that is much more my kind of film.
Yeah.
Because I think mindless action is also a struggle to connect with. So I mean, this should have been easy for me, but I don't know. I don't know what the missing link was. I think it was potentially just the fact that we were watching this from home. I think there is a certain magic to cinema that's a bit undeniable, and I think it can really change how you experience a film.
Yeah, no, I'm a million percent. It's interesting as well, that I think that obviously being a directorial debut, it's quite short. It's about 90 minutes. It feels a lot longer than that too, to be honest with you, in my opinion. But I was looking at the research and stuff, doing a bit of research on it, and an hour of this film was cut. So I kind of thought, like, what on earth was like, an hour is a huge proportion of what this film would have been.
Yeah.
That's like, nearly a half a half added on here. So I just kind of thought, like, what must else have been going on in the plot where that was cut out? And I kind of thought, like, how dull and boring would that cut of the film would have been if it was 2.5 hours long. And that sounds really horrific to say, but I didn't even think there was enough plot in this film to warrant 90 minutes, never mind 2.5 hours. So I'd certainly be interested to see what was going on there. But is this does this have like a big studio behind it, mate? I couldn't really tell. It's not like a prime original or anything like that, is it?
No, it's not a. I don't think it's a big company. It kind of has the look and feel of an A24 film, but I don't think they were involved whatsoever. So it's no one that I'm familiar with, but I think for it being seemingly a more independent studio, like the film does look phenomenal,
Oh, it
as you
looks
said.
great. Yeah, it's
And
fantastic.
I'm sure that there's an element of despite the 90-minute runtime, we never really get to know the characters. I feel like we get glimpses into the past of into the past of Nicolas Cage's character Robin, and his past is talked about a lot, but we never actually see any of it. It's all implicit or told through other people's stories. And maybe that was what was touched on in the missing hour. I have to think that would probably improve it. I think it would make it drag significantly more than it does. But I'm all for depth, really, when it comes to characters in films. I'm willing to watch a longer film if it means you get to know the characters more, provided the answers to who these characters are actually what you want to hear and what you want to see.
Yeah, no, a million percent, Callum. And with that as well, I think one of the biggest strengths of this film is that it feels so real. There's no like there's no real jovial parts of it. It is sort of a tragic tale of this guy. It's kind of, in a weird way, it kind of reminds me of how I'd imagine the Unabomber would have lived. The Americans here, because he was kind of lived in the wilderness and those kind of things. So I mean, it was certainly a unique story in that sense, but I just felt like even every hit from these guys that are beating Nicolas Cage's character up, like you can feel them, like the makeup as well is extremely well done. It feels so vivid, it feels so real, and I think that's really is complemented with how it's shot as well. It feels so visceral too. It has a really nice visual look to it too, and I can't really give that the applause that it deserves. It is incredible. It feels incredibly real. It feels like you're watching this real guy who's lost his pet pig. It's and the film's also really sad too. It's not like I said, there's no really happy moments here and dispersed between it. It is like this melancholic vibe throughout, which is it's heartbreaking, but I think that sort of adds to the film. It's got a very consistent tone, which is good.
Yeah, recently I had rewatched The Sorcerer's Apprentice, which is a Nicolas Cage Disney live action film, which came out in 2011. And it's a bit of a dumpster fire, but it has its merits, and I felt a deep nostalgia for it because I'd watch it all the time as a kid. And I was wondering, watching this film, Nicolas Cage's performance here is very subdued. He's a man of few words, whereas in Willy's Wonderland, he's a man of no words, really. And I was just wondering, what is your general Nicolas Cage preference? Do you prefer crazy Nick Cage or quiet Nick Cage?
I think he could do both very well. The first time I'd ever watched Nicolas Cage was, of course, Ghost Rider, and he's kind of a crazy, wacky character, obviously with a flaming skull head. So obviously, that's not really going to be, a similar vibe to this film of Willy's Wonderland. But I think he do both very well. I looking back at Willy's Wonderland, I really liked it. I know it wasn't for everyone, and I know maybe you didn't like it as much as I did, but I thought he was really good there. And here, I think he's absolutely phenomenal. Like, there's no doubt in my mind that Nicolas Cage is a really good actor. Anything that I've seen him in, even in Ghost Rider, like I think with what he was dealt with there, like I thought he did very well, and he's obviously a standout for me in those films. Um, so I think he does both very well. If I were gonna say a preference, naturally it probably would be the crazy, wacky, zany Nicolas Cage, because that kind of comes through in his personality as well. Sometimes in interviews, where he is this kind of enigma in Hollywood, where people, he's like Marmite. Like I said, people love him or hate him. I think I never really understood the perception that people think he's, really overrated, and he's like this goofball. Like, I think he is like a really clever individual who clearly has a big passion for acting. What other actor of Nicolas Cage's caliber does these independent films? You know what I mean? Like, he really does care about the industry, in my opinion, and it's nice to see that with he clearly has a big passion behind this project. I think he might have co-produced this or something like that. I remember, sort of seeing his name in the credits. So yeah, I mean, I think Nicolas Cage is a wonderful actor, and I think he does both very well. What about you, mate?
Yeah, I think comedic Nicolas Cage is probably my favorite. My favorite film that he's been in is Raising Arizona, which I think I'd sort of forgotten about until you started talking about it, because I was like, really, he either does an insane over the top performance, which is not good by any measure, or he does a quiet performance that is so it is so much the antithesis to his crazy performances that people go, oh well, he's quiet, so it must be good. This performance in Pig, was critically praised, but I mean, it does just seem that he's just reading the lines, but kind of quiet. And because that's such a such a different take from Nicolas Cage, and it's such a breath of fresh air, people are like, oh well, then that must mean it's good. I just think it's different. I don't know that it's a masterful performance, but I'd say I have a lot of warm feelings for Nicolas Cage in general.
Yeah, he's one of those actors as well. You forget of the extent of his filmography, kind of similar to Alfred Molina. Like, he's been in a lot of films, you know what I mean? Especially, I forget he's in the Spider-Verse movie as well. As
Mm.
Spider-Man Noir, like he's fantastic. He's a really good voice actor too. I think he's a very talented individual. Um, I actually would have liked to see him do a bit more here. Have a bit more lines to do. I felt like he there's a lot of time spent to certain other characters here, where Alex Wolf's character is still really good. Like, I thought he did a good job, but I would have liked to see Robin's story fleshed out a bit more. Maybe a few more flashbacks to his cooking, his culinary career, because I thought that was a really nice take. It almost reminded me of Anton Ego in Ratatouille by the end. He has to
Mm.
cook up this dinner to impress, or try to spawn this emotional connection with his pal's dad. I thought it was really that scene at the end, where he's cooking this meal was
Yes,
the
spoilers
standout
by
for
the way.
me. Yeah, yes, yes,
I'd,
well,
I'd,
yeah,
I'd say up until this point, it's been mild at most, but like I'm sure we'll be
it's been
venturing
out for
into
a few
into some
months. Yeah.
into some big spoilers in just a second. But yeah, I definitely agree that the third act conflict resolution being Robin cooking the antagonist a nice meal, I think is one of the most unexpectedly wholesome
Mm.
moments in any movie. Because you think it's going to be like an Iron Man 3 kind of thing, where he's given his friend a list, assemble this arsenal to go on this murder spree, and then he's just chopping up some veggies. He's just being a nice lad. He's a good guy, because up until that point, he's had such little dialogue, and we've spent so little time with him that we have no real gauge for his, his character or his morality. You know, like scene to scene, we don't really know what's happening at points. I'd say for the first half an hour, I was confused. It's probably the most accurate description, but by the third act, I was just really blown away that was that was the direction they took it. And I
Yeah.
was really impressed that they could do something that was by far my favorite part of the film.
Oh, complete. And the score for this film is incredible. I was listening to it after the film, and it's remarkable, especially during that scene too. I'd be very interested to see if this film was based on any literature before it, because it kind of has the structure of a novel, with these different parts illustrated on the
Mm.
screen. So I'd be interested to see what the crack is there. But nonetheless, it's not a film that naturally I've made a lot of notes on, because it is more of a grounded, sort of wholesome story, like you said. That word you used is really epitomizes the film for me. It is a wholesome tale, really pure at heart. Um, so it's not going to have the extent of notes that we would have, I think, for a big blockbuster. But I still think, although not perfect, I think it's a film I would recommend people to see if you're just into your more smaller independent films, or a Nicolas Cage fan or anything like that.
Yeah, and I thought it was rather beautiful, watching Robin and Amir's relationship blossom from, this kind of quiet, very, very sterile partnership to true friendship. I thought that was really sweet.
Yeah, no, completely. Alex Wolff's been in a lot of films recently. Like, it seems like he's really becoming
I
a
don't know.
household name. I think the first one I remember seeing him in was maybe Jumanji, and then we reviewed
Mm.
Old a few months ago. He was in there too, wasn't he? And of course this one. So, and it's kind of paralleled with Nicolas Cage's sort of career resurgence too. Obviously Willy's Wonderland, and I think he's been in obviously Spider-Verse too, but I'm sure he's been in other sort of smaller films, or smaller independent films as well. So he's kind of made his way back to big time, which is really great to see. So yeah, I think their chemistry is really good. To be honest, I think they
Yeah,
did well.
so Matthew, if you don't have anything further, this is, by my consideration, a new release. So I will ask you the question: Is Pig a massive hit or a piece of shit?
It's a difficult one, because I think the
Oh
ending's
God.
really tragic. It's heartbreaking, but so I think that yeah, it's not really necessarily a negative for the film, but I would have liked maybe a positive ending where him and the pig are reunited. Um, so I think for me, although like I mentioned, I think the film isn't perfect. There's things I dislike about it, and things I like more than other parts. It's got to be a massive hit for me. Like I said, I think the performances, the way it's shot is it's probably the most visually stunning film of the year for me. It looks really, really nice. So it's a massive hit for me. And if I were going to go for like out of 10 rating, it would probably be close to a 7, I think, maybe like an 8. So like I said, if you're into your independent films, or if you're into just if you're into Nicolas Cage, those kind of smaller those smaller flicks, definitely check it out. 100%. It's films like these that people really need to see to sort of help the industry. So I would say, if you've got a free weekend or something, yeah, go check it out. What about you?
Well, we watch a lot of dark, sad stuff, and
Too much.
I find this to be a welcome change. We're going in,
Mm.
it's visually quite dark. Just every scene to scene, it's quite grimy. It's a bit, Fight Club esque almost. But the story itself and the script and the characters, are all incredibly wholesome, warm-hearted people, and I think that just really lifted my spirits. But that doesn't really come into it until you know the second half, or the third act even, and that's where it really shines for me. But in that moment where I took a break, between the two halves of the film, I really struggled to bring myself to go back to it. And I think if we, if I wasn't in a position where we needed to finish this, I might not have, or at least I wouldn't have finished it, in the same day. So I mean that's not great. But I think that the second half of the film is such a bright spot, and the third act is one of my favorites that I've seen in recent times. That it's of course a massive hit. And I'd rate it probably a bit more favorably than you. A 7.5, 8. I don't think it's the strongest thing that we've seen recently. I think I needed some positivity in my life, honestly.
Yeah. 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 I mean, that wraps up another mini review on the channel. If you're new, Please be sure to subscribe. And like I said, if you've seen the film, let us know in the comments. What did you think of it? I think it's going to be a film where, it's going to, emotionally affect a lot of people because it deals with a lot of serious themes and those kind of things. And if you want to check out our other reviews, we've done Candyman recently, Cinderella. What else? What else have we done? Shang-Chi as well. It's probably the biggest blockbuster out at the minute. And yeah, stay tuned to the channel as well. We're going to be doing a lot of other content. Probably bringing the podcast back with the mysteries one, which I'll be excited for. And yeah, we hope you guys are all keeping well. Hope your family and friends are all keeping safe and well too. Take care, everyone, and bye bye.
Bye bye.